Hello guys, welcome to a new video here in JS Education. My name is Carlos Santana and this is the video number 53 for the course Developing a Headless CMS with TypeScript and GraphQL. So let's start. Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create a theming system with Css variables. And this is gonna be the part 1 of this video because basically it's going to take 2 or 3 videos in order to do the full implementation. But I will start with some stuff that we need to create our CSS variables dynamically. So let's start. So I'm going to work this project in the UI kit package. If you have been following the last videos, I show you how to create your own npm package. So I mean, at the end, this is gonna be part of the UI kit project or npm package. But if you want to follow this in order to learn by yourself, you can like create your own package, right? So anyways, it's something that is going to bring new knowledge to you. So okay, let's do it. So the first file we need to modify is the ESLint.rc. And in here, I'm going to add these two rules, guard for in and ban ts comment. And then now if we go to the sandbox, we open app.tsx. And first, I need to add the create global style from style components. Also, we need to grab the get theme bars function from source theme. We are going to create all these functions later, but I'm just preparing this. Also, I'm going to get the CSS bar calling this function, and I'm going to add them to the global style using create global style. That's going to create a component that we need to inject right here on my app, global style. So that's going to inject all the CSS variables in my sandbox. After this, you need to open the index.html, and in the body, we are going to specify the data theme equals to light. So it's going to default to the light theme. We're going to have light and dark for now. But I mean, in this video, you're not going to see the difference right now, but the idea is that eventually we will have different colors for each one. Okay, so now on source, you need to create a new folder called types. We're going to add some TypeScript types in there. So the first is going to be called variant.ts. And this is because we are going to create a button component, and we have some options that we want to change in our button. For example, the variant can be contained or outlined. Basically, this is going to help us to specify the variant types we want, and using this value of we are going to create that on type of variant is basically if we do something like this, contained or outlined. But instead of doing this manually, we just use that value of type variant and we export this type. Okay, now let's create a theme.ts inside the types. Okay, and in this one, we are going to include more types that we will create later. The font weight, font size, button palette, and then we export the style. The style is going to be light and dark. And then my theme interface is going to have a global font, and then the size and weight. And then in the style node, we are going to have the light and dark button. And inside each one, we are going to have the components we want to modify. In this case, is the button component that we will create. And it's going to be equals to this button palette. Now the file we need to create is a size TS, and this is gonna be for the button sizes, small, medium, large, and extra large. And we do the same that we did on the variant, but the difference is that we export sizes, which is gonna be the object that keys of size, and this is going to bring us this as an array. I mean the small, medium, large, and x large, and this is to do a loop and make some changes in other files. Now let's create the shape.ts type, and this is for the shape of the button. It can be regular, square, or round. And yeah, that's pretty much there. Now let's create our palette. Palette is going to be where we define our colors, button colors, and also regular colors. Let me just copy this file. So basically we have the color intensity, which comes from A to L in order. So basically A means is the light or the color that is lighter, and then A, B, C, D, etc. is changing that color to be a darker version. The button color type, we have the color, background color, border color, hover, outlined color, background color, etc. So we have this, and then our palette is gonna be white, black as a string, because white and black is just FFF or 000. But then blue, gray, green, orange, and red is going to have the color intensity, which is all of this. So by default, they need to have at least ABC, and then optional all of this. And then our button palette is going to have all the button colors like danger, dark, info, light, link, primary, secondary, success, and warning. And yeah, that's pretty much. Now let's create the index TS in order to export all of our types. Of course, we need to create these ones yet. Now let's create a global TS where we define of type value of, like this. And this is the ones that help us to do this thing here. Okay, so now let's create the file for the phoneweight.ts. So this one is going to be like normal, semi-bold, bold, and heavy, and is going to have those numbers. Now let's create the font size. The TS, and it's going to be from 3x small to 3x large, and those are the sizes. Now let's create the color types. So this one are the colors for the buttons: danger, dark, info, light, link, primary, secondary, success, and warning. And we also export the keys of that, so we can have an array of colors. And now we need to create a new folder called on source, called team. And we are going to create a file utils.ts. And I'm going to paste function by function to try to explain you how this thing works. So, okay. So the first thing, we need to import all of these types: style, color, colors, button palette. We are going to create the Css variables later. And then we have this function get button color bars. Basically, it's going to have a styles object, and if you see here, colors is using the object that keys from colors for each, and then for each one is gonna be dark, dark, danger, primary, secondary, etc. and then we build this object based on that color, and we pass these properties like color, background color, border color, and all of these are coming from our button palette that we will create later, and the properties. So that's how we build our button colors variables. Okay, the next function is gonna be the v function. This is basically to generate the CSS variable format. As you know, on CSS you need to specify the variable like this, but it's kind of tedious to do that all the time. So if you just call with this function and you pass the variable, we are going to generate the name of the variable on the CSS side. Okay, now this create CSS variables basically is going to loop through all the object of the variables that we are building, and is going to transform that object into CSS variables. So basically, for example, if they don't have a nested key, it's going to add the dash dash, this thing. Otherwise, it's going to concatenate dash to the other key. I will show you later how it's going to be created, those variables, but basically they are going to be generated with the name of the component, and then the name of the color of the, in this case, primary, secondary, whatever, and then the last one is going to be the property, CSS prop. So if it's an object, then we call this function again, and we just pass the value and the CSS variables. And if it's not an object, then that means it's an assignation. I mean, it's the value directly that we will assign to CSS variables. This assignation is because we have two types of assignations on CSS variables. So for example, the first one, let's suppose we want to assign a color variable, right? So I'm going to do, for example, dash dash black equals to 000. So this is a color assignation, right? Basically here generates a dash dash, and then value is going to be black or whatever, and then the semicolon here. And the other is going to be, for example, if you want to create a variable for your button, right? So you will say button dash primary dash color, for example, and then this is gonna be, instead of calling black directly here, this is gonna be bar dash dash black, right? So basically in this one is going to use this variable black that we already defined here. So that's the difference between an assignation and non-assignation, basically. Okay, and then the last functions we have here. So these get CSS bars basically are going to call the create CSS bars. This CSS bar object basically is passed and modified by reference. And then once we have the data or the CSS variables, we stringify those. And I use this to replace an extra curly braces that is generated by the stringify. And that's it. Now we have the get root bars, which we are going to call the get CSS bars, and we are going to inject those on the root, which are going to be global variables. And the get style bars is going to do the same, but at the body level, and we are going to specify the data theme equals to light or to dark or to anything we pass here, and we generate the variables for this specific theme. So that's why in the index HTML we specify data theme equals to light to be able to access to these variables at the body level. Okay, so after that, you need to create now the file theme.ts. And then basically this one is going to bring most of the types and also the utils, get style variables, get root variables, and get button color variables. And our default theme is going to have the global node with font, the sizes, the weights, and then the style is going to have light, dark, and then the button, And for now, we are going to have the same colors for both. But eventually, I'm going to pass some parameter like this to specify that I want to change the colors for dark. And then this get theme bars basically is going to graph the style and each node of style, light and dark. And for each one is going to get the get style bars in here from the default theme style. And now I'm going to concatenate the palette, getting the variables on the root and the font size and the weight and the style bars. So this is going to include all these variables. And now you need to create the palette file where we are going to define all the colors we are going to use. So basically here the palette is going to extend the palette type. The white is FFF, black is 000, and then here the blue starts with A, B, C, and then the color intensity is going to be darker or change it. Also the gray, like this, the green, the orange, and the red. So you can basically change the colors here if you want, but they need to have some sequence, right? So you need to do that there. And now on the theme, you need to create an index.ts. And basically we're going to export everything from theme and the utils. And the last file we need to create, it's being called Css Variables on the themes, on the theme folder. Variables ts. And let me copy this file. So basically this file is to define the palettes. In this case, a button palette is going to be like danger and is going to have the color white. So all these values here, in reality, they are the CSS variables. So instead of white, this is going to be bar -- white, something like this, right? But this is going to be generated automatically with the utils function we have. So the red A is going to be bar -- red A, whatever. But we just need to define here with just the name of the variable. And then the danger is going to have a red intensity A, background color, border color red A, etc. So we do the same for all the button colors: dark, info, light, link, primary, etc. So basically in here we define our CSS variables, and that's pretty much. And now if we want to test this, I mean, you're not going to see any color yet or any style, but if you run the sandbox, you should be able to go to the console, and then if you see, there is an object here called CSS bar, where basically are all the variables generated. Probably here is very hard to read, but if you see, start with the root and then -- white, FFF, black, 00, blue A, then this code, etc. So if you go to the element and you hit on the HTML, you will see that on the root, they are generated all the variables. This is for the font size, this is for the font weight, and then the color variables, the palette, right? White, black, blue A, blue B, blue C, etc., gray, red, all of this. Now, if you go to the body and you see that I have data theme equals to light, you will see now that under this theme, we have all these variables defined. Button is the name of the component, danger, the color type, and then the property. Then it's button danger color, button danger background color, etc. And we do the same for danger, dark, info, light, primary, secondary, success, and warning. So that's pretty much for this video. On the next one, we are going to apply all these variables to render an actual button. But I think this was very important for now, in order to understand how this system works and how we are building the CSS bars behind scenes. So that's it for this video. I don't want to extend it anymore. If you have any question, remember that you can join our Slack community. The link is on the description. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next video. Bye.